Today's lesson is all about choosing a domain name. In this article, I'll show you my process for choosing and registering a domain name. Choosing a domain name requires careful consideration because it establishes our brand identity. So our goal for today is to register a domain name for our site. So let's take a look at the components that we'll actually cover in today's article. First, we're going to look at the components for creating a website. Believe it or not, there are several that we need to put together to make everything work. Then we're going to talk a little bit about planning, everyone's favorite topic. There are a couple of important factors to consider before we register our domain name. Then we'll take a look at what exactly is a domain name, and we'll cover how to actually register it. The process is remarkably simple. We'll look at some guidelines for choosing a great domain name, and finally, we'll actually register the domain name. So let's get started. First, let's take a look at the components that are required for a domain. The first component is the actual domain name itself. So this is the actual name of my site that visitors will type in their web browsers to access my software. In this particular article, I'll show you how I go about choosing a domain name, registering it, and then connecting it to the actual website. The second component that we need to consider is web hosting. Web hosting is storage area that's available on the internet where my website will actually be located. The domain name is just a name. It has to point to something, a specific location where I host my website. Sometimes the people that sell you a domain name also provide the hosting space, but in my case, they're different. So I'll show you how I connect the two. The final piece of software that we're going to cover is the actual website software. So this software gets installed in the website space and houses all of my content, text, pictures, articles, videos. And it'll also provide the colors and design of my site. This software gets installed in the storage area the web hosting provider gives me. So before we begin, there's a couple of planning items that we need to consider. Before registering a domain name, it pays to plan ahead. Changing the domain name later is technically possible, but it can be very disruptive and time consuming. Before registering a domain name, it pays to plan ahead. Changing a domain name later is technically possible, but can be very disruptive and time consuming. In a moment, I'll cover a few quick planning items to consider before we register our domain name. Changing can be difficult, so these few steps are important before we get going. So let's take a look at what is a domain name anyway. Well, a domain name is simply the name of your site. So as an example, some domain names that we are all familiar with are sites like google.com, amazon.com, wikipedia.org, whitehouse.gov, and mit.edu. Your domain name is just the text that users will type into their web browsers in order to reach your site. Now let's take a look at how to register a domain name. The process is very simple. Actually, we choose a name, make sure that it's available, and then we register it. We register it at some place called a domain name registrar. Below, I will give you a list of all authorized domain name registrars, but in this lesson, I'll show you the one that I prefer and why. So while it's often referred to as owning a domain name, I think of it more as renting. There are companies out there called domain name registrars that we use to register our domain name. There's a fee that we pay, usually less than $20 a year, and we rent the domain name for a period of time, typically 1 year. And then at the end of the year, you go about renewing your domain name. However, it is possible to rent or reserve your domain name for more than 1 year at a time. Picking a registrar is beyond the scope of this article, so I'll just show you the registrar that I use and how they process registrations. This process is pretty much the same for all registrars, so you'll get the idea. All right, so let's look at guidelines for choosing a great domain name. So these are some items that I keep in mind anytime that I'm looking to register a new domain name. First, the name that I choose must explain the purpose of the site. While this step isn't strictly necessary, after all, sites like Amazon.com, Google.com, and Yahoo.com don't really have anything to do with explaining the purpose of the site. For me, I want my visitors to quickly understand what my site is all about the second that they see the domain name. Secondly, the domain name needs to be easy. Easy to spell, easy to read, and easy to type into a web browser. For me, that means not using any dashes in the domain name, and I also need to be careful with numbers, because it's hard to tell whether to put in the actual numbers or you spell out the number. That can be confusing as well. I'll also take a look at the name of my website on a piece of paper to make sure that it's easy to read and to type. Sometimes in your head something seems clear, but when you see it on paper, it's actually more confusing. And finally, I want my domain name to be easy to spell over the phone. That seems weird, but eventually my email address will be connected to the domain name, so it's possible, and quite likely, that at some point I will be talking to people either in person or over the phone and having to give them my email address. If the address is long and complicated and has lots of dots and dashes and crazy characters in it, it's very easy for people to make a mistake and then they won't be able to email you. So number 3, obviously the domain name's got to be available. We'll take a look at that when we register, but not more than one person can have a domain name at a time. Obviously, 10 of us can't own Amazon.com, only one company can, so it needs to be available. And finally, we want the domain name to also have similar social media profiles available. It can be very frustrating to register the perfect domain name, and then you go to Facebook or Twitter or Pinterest or any other social media platform to try to register the same or a similar name, and it's all already taken. So it pays to take a look ahead of time to make sure social media has available profiles that are at least similar to your domain name. So now let's look at the process for actually registering the domain name. We pick a registrar. I'll show you the one that I use. And then we actually sign into the registrar, just type in the name of the domain name that we want, and assuming it's available, we hit the buy button. And then once we buy it, our only options are how long do we want to buy it for. So you can usually pick 1 year as the default, and you can go all the way out to 10 years if you want to. The problem is if you commit to multiple years, you pay for all of those years up front. So some people are okay with that. I usually go 1 year at a time. So in summary, this is how we pick domain names. It's a fairly simple process, but it does take some thought and planning, as you will be pretty much stuck with the name that you pick from this point forward. It is possible to change the name later, but there's a lot of things that are going to have to be updated, and it takes a lot of time, and it's not a whole lot of fun. So it does pay to take a couple of minutes to plan ahead of time. So as a review, here are the steps that I follow anytime that I change a domain name. It needs to be a descriptive name. It should be easy, so easy to read, easy to spell, easy to type. Obviously, it needs to be available. And finally, it needs to have corresponding social media profiles available. That's not strictly needed, but it is helpful. So now that we have gone through the steps for registering our domain name, the next article we're going to cover creating a space on the internet to put our domain in. So in the next article, I'll show you how I get web hosting set up. We'll look at providers that are available, the ones that I choose, and what it takes to get some space set up. After we've got the website space set up, we're going to install website software. I'll show you the software that I use. Hint, it's free. And we'll show you how to set it up and configure it. Finally, we'll connect the domain name that we just registered in this step to the software that's installed on our web hosting, and at that point we will finally have a working website. So, lots to do. Thanks for joining today, and be sure to tune in next time as we cover website hosting. Have a great day.